Hello, hello. This is going to be my first attempt at a video a video series rather, called Mid-Run Meditations. Basically, I go on long runs on the weekends. I've been training for a half marathon for a while. Recently got a 1:39:29, which I'm super proud of. But I'm in this space right now where I kind of don't know what to do next. So figured I'd kind of take it easy, keep the mileage up, but just use it as an opportunity to talk about different things weighing on my mind, stuff that I've wanted to say, but kind of have trouble, broadcasting out there. So I might do another video like this, maybe not, we'll see. But yeah. But today I just wanted to kind of start off this video with talking about an interaction I kind of partook in, but not really. It's more between two friends arguing, and mostly about the conflict of wanting to love someone who makes it hard to be their friend, rather just knowing people that are hard to know, right? I think a lot of people have a friend like this or a family member like this where, in my case, I've known him for 13, 14 years or something like that. And I've had so many amazing memories with him, gone out and done stuff, shared emotional moments, but also, we spent our childhood together. The sheer amount of time spent, sheer amount of emotional weight, arguments, everything. I love my friend like I do my family, right? But over time, people do change, and I think it's less of that he changed and more that I grew up. Maybe not even that I grew up, but as we have grown up, the things that we believe in and cherish have grown distant from one another. So in the instance for today, we were talking about, the recent Voting Rights Act, some Supreme Court decision, and one of my friends he's black, and he's scared, understandably so. Whereas, and this friend who's scared, he doesn't care about Democrats versus Republicans, and he just wants people to see the sheer humanity that is being attacked by this decision. Whereas, while talking to this other friend, well, he we're talking about gerrymandering. So this friend in question, he's like, well, gerrymandering is bad, and what the Democrats did was technically illegal, not completely disregarding the fact that the history of gerrymandering and how it's screwed over non-white people, and completely skipping over the voting rights thing. And eventually I'm glazing over a lot of details right now. That's kind of the gist of it. Is this friend was not acknowledging nor showing any care for our other friend because of legal technicalities. And so the group chat that we've had for 12 years, they left, which was honestly a little bit my arm's tired. It's honestly a little shocking, right? To me, it kind of represents that the relationship might be over, and that will affect my relationship with them in different ways. It just kind of depends, right? But and it's been a pattern with this friend where we back in middle school, we thought edgy jokes were funny because we were losers back then, and over time that changed. This friend was one of those friends that is really into history, I don't feel like I have to say much past that, but because you can kind of guess the kind of person, but he has always demonstrated such amazing empathy and love for people around him. And I know he's emotionally intelligent and cares about people. But when we have these conversations, that just kind of goes out the window. Or like in college, he'll talk about, oh, I always get into arguments with, leftists about da-da-da-da-da. I'm like, okay, well, let's suppose you're right in this. Why are you always getting into these arguments? Like I might go to visit him and, same kind of edgy jokes that he would do in middle school. And I don't feel comfortable with that anymore. And I know who he is. I love him. I have loved him. But it becomes hard to know somebody, or like, it makes me sad. And I feel an amount of guilt in saying that it is difficult to know this person. Not in the sense of like, there's a lot that's unknown. It's like, to be an acquaintance with someone, to have a relationship. It's difficult because I feel like I have to justify to myself, I feel like I have to justify to myself that, the time spent with this person, and all this other meaningful stuff. And, this is something I've been kind of, dealing with today. Of like, well, do you cut the person off? And, well, do you have these sorts of talks with them, even though you've had lessons before? At what point do you give up? To what extent do you challenge it? And, I don't really know the answers. That's why, I'm kind of talking about it right now, trying to verbalize it. But I feel like this is by no means a unique experience, right? Everyone's got that one uncle who's, an alcoholic who's beaten, well, probably not beating his kids, but there's been a horrific alcoholic, traumatized from the Korean and Vietnam War, dealt with depression, lots of family issues over the years. But then, in those sober moments, they're one of the nicest people you'll ever know. But then just get back on that sauce. And similarly with this guy, my friend, it's the same thing. It's edgy jokes that I really don't like. A lot of these opinions that I vehemently disagree with. And when I introduce them, I have to justify, like, oh, he's normally a really nice guy. He's just, he's got kind of a sense of humor. And it feels bad. But then there's those moments where he's himself, right? He's himself, and I know, and then he demonstrates those amazing characteristics that I know he has. And it's almost like a lot of people have a face that they present to the world. Like, it's not anything surprising or anything like that. But, I myself, the way I talk to people is not the way I talk to myself. And no one is that way. Okay, I'm going to turn around because we're already at a little over a mile. But, the way I broadcast myself to the world is not who I truly am. Because there's some things, you can't share about yourself. You're at work. You're not going to talk about, I don't know, the massive dump you took, right? Even though I think that's funny, right? My coworkers, a lot of women in their, 40s and 50s, they're not going to think that's funny, even though I think it is. So, that's just kind of a small example, but I think there's almost a caricature that he and everybody builds up that you don't, like, once you entrench yourself in it, you don't know how to get yourself out. And I've dealt with that too. There was times in college where I was just an honest to God loser. I fell for, the memes, and didn't realize, while I thought I was being ironic, I didn't realize the rhetoric that I was saying, the jokes I was making, didn't come across as ironic. And that severely affected my relationships. And, at no point did I believe any of the jokes I made, but it doesn't matter. Like, I remember I met some, it was the beginning of the school year, because I was an RA, met the other new RAs, and I don't know, I just made a joke about, what was it? I don't know, I can't really think of anything specific, but it's just kind of an offensive joke about a group of people, right? Maybe a stereotype about, people from the Balkans hating each other, something like that, I don't know. And in my mind, I'm like, oh, it's absurd, it's ironic. People are able to recognize how absurd this is or how ironic this is because it's absurd. And from the get-go, that strained the relationships, deservedly so. And that straining over time, there's two responses you can have to this strain, which is either you realize, okay, this is not being broadcasted the way I think it is, and really, I'm the asshole here, r/AITH, or AITA. And the other response is, well, it's other people's fault that they're failing to recognize this. So I'm fine. They're just stupid. Or they just don't get it, for whatever reason. And there's a time where I fell for that, thinking, oh, they just don't get it. That's fine. I know I don't believe any of the ridiculous jokes that I'm saying. But then when then I found myself in a new space, and I realized that I wasn't surrounded by people who would chuckle at those things, even if it was a strained chuckle of like, that's nice. Once I realized I was out of that space, I couldn't make those jokes, and I realized the real impact that my words have. And it made me better as a person. But going back to this friend, I know this is kind of this tangent. I think he took the latter path of, I'm not the one at fault here. They just don't get it. And it really hurts. It's painful to see, because I want to be able to help that person, but, it's on them at the end of the day. So I gotta get past the family here. It's a little awkward. Hello. Almost there. Hello. Okay. Now we're there. But yeah, you get what I mean? You want to love somebody who makes it hard to love them. And for all their flaws, and to broaden this, I'm not just talking about political beliefs, ways of talking. It's just this overall idea that it's, in spite of how hard they make it, you really want to love somebody. But hello, you really want to love somebody because the time invested in emotions invested in things like that. But less of a meditation and more of just rambling. But yeah, click the like button, click subscribe if you want to hear more. Probably do another one of these in the same run, because it's 10 miles today.